Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. We talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our national landscape and how they impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show we'll discuss the issues and lessons from Anambra Governorship election. Also, IPOB frowns on continued sit-at-home order in the southeast. And later on the show, governors tackle Attorney General of the Federation over $418 million Paris Club payment. Remember, in the course of the program, we take your questions, but first subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I'm joining me via Zoom, the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, all the way from Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us again on Issues with you.
Thank you, Ibrahim Shita, our regular host.
Thank you for having me as well. So let's start with the gains, the lessons from Anambra election. First, let me say congratulations to your accurate prediction of the winner. A great number of pundits have also described the outcome of the election as a reflection of the people's will, even though Anduba rejects the results. What have been your view of the whole outcome?
Yes, I think that the election in Anambra is a victory for democracy, given the guerrilla-style warfare that IPOB had been waging in the southeast, and the general fear and apprehension that the people had about the possibility of having an election in that state, especially given the fact that IPOB at some point said it was ordering a sit-at-home for the period that coincided with the election. But IPOB was prevailed upon to let the election hold, and IPOB withdrew its sit-at-home order. That's another plus for democracy. Shows that democracy triumphed. I have to praise the resilience of the people, because look, the fact that IPOB said it was not going to go ahead with the sit-at-home order was not enough to remove all the fears and apprehension that people had. But the people still came out to exercise their franchise. So that's victory for democracy. Yes, like we always have in elections in our country, there was manifest voter party and complaints about late arrival of materials, as well as the malfunctioning of the beavers, which the INEC was happy to test in Anambra State. But at the end of the day, the delays, INEC made up for those delays by having election extended in some places, and the people were able to exercise their franchise. And one good thing also was the fact that, yes, we militarized Anambra State. We poured more than 50,000 security operatives into Anambra State. But as part of that, they were largely professional. They conducted themselves very well, and the usual stories of people being molested on election day, we didn't really see that in Anambra State. One ugly fixture of our recent elections is the idea of vote buying. Vote buying was also rampant in Anambra State during this election. I wish we can find a way to put an end to vote buying, because as INEC continues to revolutionize its processes, our elections will become more and more credible. But how do we stop this idea of buying people's conscience on election day? I think that the Anambra election showed us that an election could be credible, but at the same time be blotted. It could be blotted by cases of vote buying and all that. So we don't want to see that Why should you offer money to people to vote for you on election day? That has to stop. Arrests must be made and lessons must be taught people who have made a habit of coming out on election day to buy the conscience of our people. So, by and large, democracy triumphed in Anambra State. Yes, the percentage of voters was barely more than 10% of the eligible voters, but there's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing we can do about that. We are even grateful that people could come out to vote in the first place.
Right, makes sense. So if we look at the gains that we've recorded and then some of the drawbacks that you regarding the Anambra election, are you saying that the deploying of beavers is something that we can also use on a large scale come 2023 presidential or general election?
The question again.
Yeah, looking at the gains that were recorded in Anambra election, you know, not also neglecting the drawbacks. Can we say what INEC deployed for Anambra election, the beavers and so on and so forth, is something we can use on a large scale for the general election come 2023?
Yes, I believe that it's a very good system, but INEC needs to train people properly. I understand that some of the people who are supposed to take part in the election pulled out at the last minute. When you have that kind of situation, you have a situation in which people who had not familiarized themselves sufficiently with that accreditation module coming to use the machine on election day. Of course, that will bring all kinds of problems. But I believe that for future elections, INEC should work on the staff, prepare them sufficiently to be able to handle this machine. And equipment can malfunction at any time. It's just like our phones. Your phone could freeze, you know. So anything could happen once you are dealing with a machine. But I believe that sufficient familiarization with the machine, sufficient training of its ad hoc staff and non-ad hoc staff on how to use the machine will enable us to enjoy it during the general election of 2023. And if it pleases INEC to introduce something better, fine. It's well within their rights to introduce something better, to introduce methods that will make our elections more and more credible and reduce even the rate of post-election litigations.
Right, let me remind our audience who are watching us to start sending your questions. We promise we're going to take, you know, if we can't take all, we'll make sure we take most of your questions. So let's change tack, like talking about the sit-at-home row in the southeast. It looks like the southeastern states have been thrown into a quandary. The proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, which initiated the sit-at-home order, is now appalled by their own creation, warning that it would deal with anyone sustaining the order. This sounds to me like a paradox. BKO.
Yes, it is. IPOB has found itself in a very paradoxical situation whereby it gives instructions and those instructions are not carried out. As I've said repeatedly, cultists and other negatively inclined persons have since hijacked the sit-at-home order instituted by by IPOB and revoked by IPOB. So you find that cultists and other people who are capitalizing on the lawlessness in the southeast have now taken it upon themselves to force people to stay in their homes every Monday. IPOB had announced through his spokesman, Emma Pahafu, that it will only observe this form of civil disobedience on the days that Nnamdi Kanu is brought to court. But what we have is every Monday now, whether Nnamdi Kanu is brought to court or not, some young people will be enforcing a sit-at-home order that IPOB has since revoked. This is unfortunate. When you start this kind of agitation, you start this kind of group like we have with respect of IPOB. You never can tell where it will lead you. You never can tell where it will end. So we've seen people now who have hijacked the struggle and are doing things based on their own whims. So it's now frustrating to IPOB that his instructions are no longer carried out. And it is now telling people of the Southeast that they should devise ways of disobeying those who are bent on enforcing the sit-at-home order every Monday. So, but how does our people do that? These boys go around with assault weapons. So it's only a person who does not value his life that will want to confront them. I'm not sure many people will listen to the instruction or the advice of IPOB that the civil populace must find ways to resist these people, to disobey these guys. The reason these guys are able to force their opinion down the throats of people is the fact that they are heavily armed. They take on the army, they destroy police buildings, destroy DSS buildings.
Right.
That makes it dangerous for ordinary civilians to take them on or to willfully disobey them. So as we're saying now, banks will not open on Monday, schools will not open on Monday, schools now open on Saturdays to make up for every Monday that they cannot open.
Right, Biko.
IPOB started all this. Now it appears to have gone beyond its power.
Right, Biko. So what do you think? Because the reason why we're having this conversation is to suggest for the people in power what they can do to ensure that people in the Southeast, they are living a good life. They are not being disturbed by all these non-state actors. What would you suggest?
The best way is to continue to pursue the possibility of peace. If we can achieve peace through diplomatic means, it remains the best way. It remains the best thing to do. It is not in all cases that force works.
Right. Right.
I've given the example of the Colombians who have not decided to return, to opt for diplomacy because more than 60 years of war have failed to produce peace. So I'm happy that this election showed that IPOB can actually listen. This election showed that IPOB can be engaged meaningfully and they will take positive action. So if we could appeal to them to let the election also withdraw their sit-at-home order so that the people can vote, and we saw IPOB even encouraging people to troop out en masse and vote, it means that peace is possible through diplomatic channels, through engagement, through some form of rapprochement. Yes, the court case may go on, but side by side the court case, we should look for...
Okay, because as regards the Nnamdi Kanu's trial that you touched on, Justice Nyako expressed their displeasure over the conduct of Kanu's lawyers, who walked out shortly before the arrival of the judge. She declined to dismiss the pending application and rather adjourn the case until January for trial. What's your reaction to this? Because this is the man, you know, in the middle of all these things.
Yes, I think the DSS need to be prevailed upon to not spoil the case that the federal government has against Nnamdi Kanu. This idea of denying lawyers access to him, there's nowhere in the world where this is done. You put a man on trial, let his lawyers have access to him. The whole world literally had to apply pressure on DSS to bring Kanu to court because IPOB threatened that it will impose a 21-day sit-at-home order if Kanu was not brought to court late last month. So the conduct of DSS is one reason for the behavior of Kanu's lawyers. There is no way that Kanu can properly defend himself against the allegations brought against him if he is denied access to his lawyers. If we bring him to court, then let the lawyer see him and be able to ask him one or two questions. This is not how to do things. The matter is in court, and if he is not allowed access to his lawyers, then it could jeopardize his case. At the end of the day, they are going to say that he did not get fair hearing. So the exuberance of the DSS, the excessive actions of the DSS needs to be curtailed so that this case can go on and there won't be all kinds of walkouts, all kinds of controversies over this matter.
All right, Mikhail, so let's go to our final topic, and we're already receiving avalanche of questions here on our YouTube channel. We'll take them one after the other, but let's quickly talk about the last topic that we scheduled for conversation today. The Nigeria Governors Forum is at daggers drawn with the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF Malami, over planned payment of $418 million to consultants, even when the alleged debt was being disputed and currently subject of pending litigations. Mikhail, please help us make sense of this whole hullabaloo.
You know, since this whole thing began, I had made one request, and that request was that the Attorney General, the Federation, should allow the cases that have arisen as a result of this judgment debt to run their course. I didn't see any need for the indecent haste to pay $418 million to about 3 individuals, especially when the case was in court. The governors challenged the propriety of paying that money to those individuals. And the governor said, look, even the claims that they made, the claims have not been thoroughly verified. They are not convinced that they did any job to warrant being paid this kind of money. So, and the governors are saying that they did not even provide any form of undertaking or indemnity to the FG to act on their behalf. So to go to the point of even going to make deductions from the Federation account without the knowledge of the governors was something that I found strange. And that's why the governors are saying, what is the interest of the Attorney General in this matter? We have all kinds of judgment debts that nobody is talking about. What is the reason for the interest in this particular one? And the governors are saying, look, if the Attorney General has to make a choice between making supporting payments to a few individuals that will help them to nourish their lives of luxury. Between doing that and protecting the interest of the Nigerian people, that shouldn't the Attorney General be on the side of the Nigerian people as against being on the side of three wealthy individuals who want this money just to be able to sustain their luxuriant lifestyles. So my own attitude to this is there's no need for this haste. Let those cases be concluded. If the judges rule that this money should be paid to this consultant, so be it. But to not let the cases run and to make moves to pay these so-called consultants while cases are still pending in court, challenging their rights to be paid, is what I find is what makes the conduct of the Attorney General difficult to explain. Because as the chief law officer of the country, he knows that once a case is in court, you have to let things stay the way they are until the case is decided. You know, but that's not what we have seen. We've seen him fighting for these three individuals and even saying that governors cannot at this stage pull out of the refund of that money to those consultants. But the governors have said from the beginning that, look, we do not believe that these guys deserve this money. We can't even see evidence of any work that they did. So the Attorney General, there was just last week, a federal high court in Abuja stopped the federal government from further deducting from the federation accounts to pay those contractors. I mean, to those consultants.
Yeah.
So, in spite of that, the Attorney General was still making some controversial statements affirming that the consultants must be paid.
Must be paid. Because
I really don't get what is going on. I don't understand this conduct of the Attorney General. He has to be seen to be even-handed. He has to be objective. He has to stay in the middle. He must not show his hands. He must not show clear signs that he's siding with those consultants the way he's doing. And if he continues along that line, people will say that he's doing it because he expects some form of reward at the end of the day. I'm not saying that to prison, but in order not to send that message to, across to people, he has to stay objective of this manner, stay in the middle, and let those court cases be decided.
Absolutely, Biko.
Taking action.
Absolutely, and I think that's the big elephant in the room that a lot of people are trying to find answers to. And a lot of Nigerians are so discerning that they can read between the lines. Biko, let's begin to take questions from our YouTube channel. This person is asking a question on our first topic. Stanley Maduka is saying, Jide, please, do you think that Governor Obiano will not play the godfather role when he assumes office, given the role he played during the election?
Well, if he is wise, he should not do that. He should just let Chukuma Soludo do his job. Governor Obiano fought his godfather, the man who brought him to office, the man who made him governor. He fought him, immediately he won the election, he fought him, and Obi found the room too hot. Obi had to leave the Abga for PDP. So if you did that to your own predecessor, you should expect that if you try to put Professor Chukuma Soludo in your pocket, the same fate will befall you. Politicians must learn that, look, once you have had your day in the sun, let other people exercise the mandate, the powers that have been given to them. Look at what is happening in Gombe today. The man who puts the current governor there is Senator Danjuma Goje, but the governor does not want to see him. They are now locked in a battle for the control of the APC in Gombe State. And that's a man that was commissioner under Danjuma Goje before Danjuma Goje made him governor. It was the same fate that befell Danjuma Goje when Dan Kwambo became governor. Dan Kwambo became governor, he stopped having anything to do with Danjuma Goje and even left for the PDP. He left he remained in the PDP while Danjuma Goje left for the APC. So if things continue this way, the point that I want to make is that governors must learn. You can see the way the governor of Borno State is handling things. He describes Zulum as his master, as his leader. So they are handling each other the right way. Once the president has become governor, let him do his work. Don't try to dictate to him. Don't try to pick appointees for him, pick aides for him. That's where the quarrel always starts. And someone like Soludo, he has such a strong personality that if Obiano tries to assert himself over Soludo, it's so predictable what we have.
Right, Biko, the question on the sit-at-home order, this is coming from Stanley Maduka. It says, no, this is coming from Alphonsus Uchichi. It said, one thing you should know is that the sit-at-home order has been entered what is called autopilot, which means that it
can't make money on Mondays.
Biko, are you there?
Even travelers can't come into any part of the southeast.
Biko, can you hear me?
They have to just stay somewhere. So it's hurting the business of the southeast tremendously, and at some point it has to stop. That's why I'm saying that continuous engagement with people who can talk to IPOB must continue. So that by the time IPOB itself commits to peace, the people who are doing things on behalf of IPOB, they will have no choice but to let peace reign. I still believe that we can make peace without even resorting to the use of force.
So that's just the thing. Let's see the issue on the last topic, because this is saying, I know, or I think the government of Nigeria wants a peaceful resolution in the case of Kanu. Okay, that's not it. BK, the $418 million Paris Club, what would you say to it? I don't think we have any question from that regard. So what would be your advice? I think you were trying to also advise the Attorney General to dissociate himself, to try to, distance himself from, a situation where Nigerians will be thinking maybe it has something in it.
Yes, that's what I said earlier, that he has to stay neutral on this matter. The good thing is the cases are in court. He should not show too much enthusiasm to have this money paid to these individuals. He should let the cases in court be concluded, so that we'll see whether the judges handling them will say, okay, go and pay these guys. And if the judges say pay them, so be it. But there are so many other judgment deaths all over the place. And they are saying, why this one? Why the interest in this one? Because I know some communities that sued the federal government, and the federal government was asked to pay huge lump sums. And those communities are still waiting. Nobody has paid them. OD, for example, OD was destroyed during the Obasanjo regime because the youths there murdered 14 policemen. And the people went to court. I'm aware that the government was asked to pay a huge sum of money as compensation. Have we paid? There are many other cases like that. The Nigerian government is owing judgment debts, very huge judgment debts. They've refused to pay those judgment debts, and somebody is now paying all his attention to one judgment debt that arose long after those ones. So that's why the question is being asked, why the interest in this one? There are other judgment debts that you refuse to talk about. Why the interest in this one? So he has got to stay neutral so that it does not damage his own name by his attitude to this matter.
I think I have my audio back now. So, Biko, in all of these things, another person is, okay, I think we already talked about the $418 million. Somebody is trying to say something as regards the sit-at-home order. He's saying that the best thing that the federal government can do is to release Nnamdi Kanu unconditionally and allow Nnamdi Kanu to call off this sit-at-home order. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think that the conversation is on. I know that governors of the Southeast are making moves. And the Attorney General said some days back that, look, the federal government is not ruling out the possibility of dialogue in this manner. And I think that is impressive to hear that no effort is being ruled out. But you know, to do this, the federal government will not simply release Kanu without asking for some concessions from Kanu himself. If Kanu will renounce any form of violence, of course, it may form the basis of talks. Nobody goes into a negotiation with a mindset of losing. You want to go into a negotiation in a position of strength. You want to get some form of concessions, while you are negotiating with people. So the federal government will want to get some concessions from Nnamdi Kanu himself. Will he renounce violence of any kind? Will he commit to peace completely? And I think that if Kanu will commit completely to peace and disband some of the groups that are taken to violence in the Southeast, the government will be willing to let him go in the interest of peace. We've seen government negotiate with Niger Delta Rangers, and they stop destroying pipelines and export terminals in our country. So I'm convinced that it is possible to make peace over this Kanu affair in a manner that will make everybody happy. It's possible, so focus on achieving peace.
Right, thank you. So let me quickly squeeze this question in. It's coming from Moses Oriade. He says, Biko, please, can you explain why the AGF Malami seems so powerful and unquestionable by the president over all his actions? Is that accurate?
Well, all attorney generals are usually powerful. By design, an attorney general has to be powerful. The attorney general is the most senior minister in the administration. The Constitution makes him the most senior minister. The attorney general is the only position that the president cannot delegate to anyone. There is no minister that the president cannot delegate his job to anyone. There is no minister that the president cannot by himself do his job. But it is the job of the attorney general that a sitting president cannot do by himself. So that makes that position so powerful. it's natural that an Attorney General will be powerful. Then, of course, this Attorney General had been working with President Buhari for many years. Right from their days in the CPC, he was his lawyer. So he has so much trust in him, so much belief. You know, when you are talking about some of the people who had worked with Buhari, people like the Minister of Education, he had worked with Buhari for years. So that will make the president trust his judgment so much. It's the same thing with Malami. Malami has not worked with Buhari for as long as the Minister of Education, but he's been his lawyer. He has earned his confidence over the years. So the president trusts him. Many people didn't think he would get a second term, but the president trusts him and he gave him a second term. So where you have the trust of your boss, it is added power. It is added power. And that position, the job of Attorney General, is a job that gives tremendous power to the person occupying that seat. Was the chief law officer of the nation. The Constitution says that he could discontinue any criminal matter without asking questions, without being asked questions. He could discontinue any matter, any criminal matter in any court without being subjected to questioning. That's the sort of power that he has. So, and I'm not surprised that he has exercised that power in that way. The former Attorney General during Jonathan's time, Adoke, Mohammed Adoke, was also powerful. Was also powerful. Because they will always get the ear of the president. Because the president can't do their job for them. The president can't delegate their job to anybody.
Right, because I think
you've got to be an Attorney General.
Right, because thank you very kindly for all your insightful analysis that you've always done for us on this program. Finally, Stanley Maduka is saying, Ibrahim, I think the question is for me, what is the score between Nigeria and Liberia and the match is going on in Morocco? It's just 1-0, Nigeria 1, Liberia 0. Just 15 minutes into the match, that's when the match was, the goal was scored by Victor Osimhen via penalty. We are also monitoring everything for you here because you know that BKO cannot do without sports, despite talking about Nigeria and things happening around the world. So BKO, Nigeria is leading, finally. Okay, I think, well, this is special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analysis. And thanks to you, to our audience, for joining us on every edition. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, TVC News. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you next edition. Bye now.